I can remember shooting up a whole bunch of meth and heroin in the hotel the night before and like hoping and praying that I didn't wake up. My dad was in the military, so we moved all over the place a lot. I was probably 8 years old when my parents got a divorce. Me and my little sister ended up moving with my mom to Michigan, and my dad moved to Colorado. It started like a rocky path for me, you know, like I hated being with my mom because she would bring guys and I'd be like, oh, you're not my dad, I don't have to listen to you. So then I'd go to my dad's house and he had a new wife and they started building a family, and it was just rocky, you know, it was up and down all the time. My mom ended up getting in a relationship with a man, and it was a little bit brutal at times. You know, him and I had physically fought a couple times. I always was causing problems. I would run away. My mom would be like out searching for me. Like the drugs and the alcohol were one thing, but the men is definitely my number one addiction. I lost my virginity at 13. I ended up pregnant at 14, and I got an abortion when I was 14. I met a guy when I was 15 years old, and that was like the love of my life, and we were going to live this amazing life together. And while he was 19, I was 15. I ended up pregnant at 16. I was 4 months pregnant, and I walked down the aisle. I got my high school diploma. 2 months later, I ended up having a miscarriage at 6 months. I got married at 16. My husband at the time decided that he was going to go to basic training and go into the military. And I had got word when he was in basic training that he cheated on me with one of the women in basic training. I had lost it. You know, I was still going through the emotions of my losing my son. I may have allegedly took a butcher knife and tried to cut objects off of him. I definitely tried to cut his thing off. I remember the cops coming in, and again, I'm 16 years old, and they said that they had got a domestic call for somebody screaming bloody murder, and they were like, what happened? And I was like, well, I took a butcher knife and tried to cut my husband's thing off. So it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and the cop's like, look, like you can either call your mom and she can come and get you, or we're going to take you to the psych ward and you're going to stay there for 72 hours. I stayed here. He moved to Fort Hood, and like 2-3 months went by, and he called me and was like, look, like we're married. Let's make this work. I was up to no good here. I had started like dabbling in ecstasy and stuff like that. And when my husband called, I had told my family, like, I am married. I did get married for a reason. I'm going to go try and make it work, you know? So I moved to Fort Hood away from my entire family. I've never been away from my family like that. And within 2 weeks, I'm pregnant again. So this is my third pregnancy, 17 years old now. Everything was good for a couple months, but again, he started cheating on me again, and now I'm over there away from my entire family, and now I'm pregnant with my other son. I'm locked in this lease that I can't get out of, so I end up staying there. I was working like here and there, but I was getting spousal pay to where they would pay me to live off base, and then he was living in the barracks. And my husband ends up getting dishonorably discharged from the military. Now I'm 9 months pregnant with my son, about to give birth anytime. I call my mom and I said, look, like I need you to come and get me. I don't know what to do. And my mom flies out to Texas to come and get me, get on the plane. And within 3 days, I had my son. And that was the start of me being a single parent, you know, like I filed for divorce and I was like, I'm going to be a good mom. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to do everything that I'm supposed to do. I applied for college. I got into college, and I was working 3 jobs, raising my son. I had my own apartment, everything. I was doing so good. And I got a full ride scholarship to ASU West for elementary education. And I was 19 years old, and I got introduced to crystal meth. At first, I wasn't doing the meth. I was just delivering the meth. I had started running for some guys in El Mirage, and I was delivering pounds of methamphetamines to Mexico, New Mexico, California, Nevada. Before I knew it, I was a tweaker. I started getting high on my own supply. I started dating the drug dealer, the guy that I was delivering the dope for. My son ended up staying with my parents. I ended up giving them temporary guardianship. So me and a girl that were doing the drug deal, her and I, we were friends. We lived in the same apartment complex. I knew her kids, but something just wasn't right about the situation. And the guy that we did the deal with was he was like this grungy biker looking guy. And I had a feeling in my head, I'm probably high, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm paranoid. I was under surveillance probably 10 months. They had been watching me. Surprise PD had been watching me. She was an informant, and she was working with the police. And instead of DCS getting involved, that's when I physically signed over papers to my family so that he wouldn't get taken away. And at this time, I had just found out that I was pregnant with my daughter. I was a tweaker, I was doing meth every day. And they ended up arresting me, taking me to Estrella. And my parents were like, look, we're not going to help you. What are you doing out here? You've left your son. Now you're pregnant with this little girl. You're a fuck up, basically. And again, calling my parents every day. And I'm like, please, I'll be done with him. I'll be done with the drugs. I'll do whatever you want. Just get me out of jail and don't let me have this baby in jail. A week before my due date, my parents finally put up my bond. So my parents ended up getting me out at the time. So my parents said, you go to rehab and we'll help you. And I end up having my daughter. I take her with me there. My family comes and visits me, and my mom's like, yeah, this isn't a place to have the baby. Why don't you just come home with us? You can be around your son. You can have your daughter there, and you go to meetings. So I start going to meetings. In my mind, I'm like, fuck men. I hate men. I'm going to become a lesbian. I meet this girl at the meeting, and I'm like, I really like her, and before I know it, she's doing meth in front of me, and 2 weeks later, I'm doing meth with her. And now I have this little girl. I've totally left my parents' house. I'm staying with this chick. I have this new baby, and I don't know what to do with her. My girlfriend at the time was a stripper, and we would go to the strip club. I'd drop my daughter off at the babysitter. I'd leave her for 2, 3, 4 days at a time, not coming back to get her. We would manipulate guys into giving us money at the strip club. I would sit in the back, hold all of her money while she danced. And then, we'd rob guys here and there. I'm doing this whole strip club thing, and I meet this guy at the strip club, and I'm like, I don't want to be a lesbian anymore. I want to be who I am. And he's like this biker who does tattoos. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and he's 45 and I'm 21, 22. And he's like the love of my life. And we're going to get married and we're going to have kids. And I had stopped doing meth. I end up pregnant 2 weeks later after his vasectomy reversal. And now I'm like, in my mind, I've fucked off these other 2 kids. This is going to be the one that's going to fix everything. And I'm going to be this little wife with this white picket fence. And we're going to have this perfect life. And I slowly am starting to bring him around my family. And my parents are looking at me like, are you serious? He's 45, you're 23. That's disgusting. My mom was the same age as him. And my mom's like, seriously? And I'm like, but I love him and he's so amazing and he does tattoos and it's just, Little did I know he was living a whole double life. He had me here with our own little place, and then in California, he had his place with his wife and kids. I ended up leaving him, and I called the people that adopted my daughter. They allowed me to come live there for a little bit. I get into another relationship, got married after 2 months of knowing him. Our relationship was very, very toxic. We beat the shit out of each other all the time. I ended up leaving him, and 2015, I started dabbling into meth again. This time it was different though. Like, I started shooting up because I had already lost my son and my daughter. The state of Arizona didn't care. You know, when the allegations were made that I was in an abusive relationship and I was neglecting my other daughter, my sister ended up going and filing emergency custody against her. The state of Arizona gave it to her. It was rough, you know. I didn't want to admit that I had a problem. I was like, everything is fine, you know, and I'd have bruises all over my face, and my family would be like, no, nothing is fine. Like, you've literally fucked off your entire life. I ended up going to Native American Connections. I left the guy that I was with. It really hit me hard. Like, I tried to kill myself, you know, I felt like I had nothing to live for anymore. My sister's like, look, I'll pay for you to go to Teen Challenge in Casa Grande, get away from him, and start your life over. And I did. I went down the Teen Challenge in Casa Grande. I lasted 6 days down there. And I just wasn't ready, you know. By then, my family was done. Like, they had always come to my rescue and helping me out of sticky situations. And if I was going to do it, I was going to do it on my own this time. And so in October 2015, I went to Native American Connections. My Family First case manager, I remember calling me and giving me a chance to, like, say, I fucked up. You know, I had taken some baking soda pills to try to clean out my system, and it came back diluted on my test. And I had never failed a test before. So she's like, get over to the PSI, take another test, let's go from there. I couldn't. I just couldn't do it, you know? And after that first fuck up, like, I just gave up, you know? I ended up going back to the guy again because that's all I felt I ever deserved was a piece of shit, you know? I went back to him, and I was on that relapse for 1.5 years. They ended up severing my rights to my daughter. My daughter ended up getting adopted by my little sister. They completely changed her name. At that point, she was 10, almost 11. I wanted to speed up the process of, like, all my charges. I didn't want to do drug court. I didn't want to do nothing. Like, I just pled guilty to everything and signed a plea agreement for 18 months probation. And him and I got in a huge, huge fight. He ended up knocking my teeth out. I had called my family. I hadn't talked to my family in a while. And I said, look, like, I need help. You know, I know that you guys are at your wit ends with me and you don't want to help me, but please, like, I'm begging you, or he's going to kill me and I'm going to be in a body bag and you guys are going to verify my body in the morgue. My brother-in-law and my dad came and got me at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. My sister had called 911. The cops showed up, and because he had marks on him and I had marks on me, we were both going to go to jail if I press charges. So the cops said, this is your choice. You can either press the charges or you can take your get out of free jail card and you can go get your shit and never look back. I always went back to the people that adopted my daughter. I've always had that open relationship with them. They've always been there to help me. And they allowed me to come and live at their house. They've always been a huge part of my story, you know, my sobriety. If it wasn't for them opening their house to me, I don't know that I would have gotten sober this time. I had already had the program from before. I knew what I needed to do. So this time I just jumped both feet in and I ran with it. So like the 12 to like 18 months, like I went through a breakup at 12 months and like I almost relapsed, like my heart was broken. And for the first time in my life, I'm okay being alone. It's crazy. Like I look back now and like I just cannot believe what a beautiful life I live. You know, I didn't have my children, and slowly I'm starting to have my kids back in my life. You know, my 18-year-old son, I got to be there with him the other day when he went into surgery. And my 15-year-old, I got to go driving with her. And my 14-year-old, which is the one that was adopted by my little sister, she didn't have anything to do with me for a long time. Like for the last 3.5 years, she has not talked to me. She has not, didn't want anything to do with me. And last weekend, I got to see her for the first time, which is absolutely amazing. You know, like I said, I lived with my daughter that was adopted by the family friend. I lived with them for about 9 months. And then I ended up moving out, and now I live with a friend where I rent a room, and it's great, you know. I model now and getting to walk in fashion shows and be published in magazines, and I would never have imagined this life ever. I really wouldn't. I started a clothing line, Sober State of Mind. Like now I've got a website, I've got business cards, I've got everything. The biggest relationship is my sister. You know, I held a lot of resentment towards her for taking my daughter from me. I hated her for a really long time. And now that I've gotten closer with God and working through my steps again and knowing that, I'm thankful that she did what she did, because I don't know where my daughter would be right now. She'd probably be like me, pregnant at 14, you know, and that's not what I want. Like as a parent, we want our kids to live a better life than we have. It's just crazy to me. I can't even put into words how much life has changed. Working in recovery, that right there, it's amazing. Sun up to sundown, my life is definitely recovery. My phone does not stop, because I know back when I was hurting and when I was in that dark place, I wish I had somebody that was like that with me. I know how to deal with it. I've been there, and I know what I'm doing. And if I can give you that little bit of hope that it's going to be okay. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what you've done in your life. You can do anything you put your mind to.
Detox to Rehab wants to help as many people as possible and do it the right way. Please subscribe, comment, and like our channel. Thank you for watching.